G'day mates, this is a quick little update regarding the Senate in the 2024 cycle. So, as a baseline, we have Republicans at 50, Democrats at 43, with of course Florida, Texas, and West Virginia being in a safe category for the Republicans, or in a safe to likely. First, we're going to go a quick overview at the changes in the Senate elections essentially. So Sinema, we still don't have a decision on whether she's going to run, yes or no. So that's a little bit of an inconvenience. She has filed paperwork, but at the moment there's not really a decision on whether she does run, yes or no. She has about 11 million in the bank. That's about as much as you can get for that kind of a race statewide. She has about twice the coffers of Gallego. So regarding polling here, it's pretty obvious Gallego is going to be the Democrat nominee. For the Republicans, you have Kari Lake, you have Mark Lamb, Nicholson and Wright. Alan White, he's probably going to be on the ballot, but not really anything worth a damn. So the rest essentially is already ruled out of running. Lake is going to win the primary, of course. And now you have essentially a general election between Gallego, Lake, and maybe Sinema. That's the state of the race for Arizona. California. And I'm going to keep the one from Arizona open because I wanted to do the polling later, because it's one of the swing states. So we have, with Feinstein being deceased and her replacement, Butler, not running for a full term. So now you have a bunch of Democrat candidates, of which Adam Schiff is leading the pack. And then you have Republicans, of which Steve Garvey is leading the pack. And here's a fun thing about it. It's a jungle primary, which means everything is just going to be dumped up on a single stack. And the top two candidates will be going to the general election. So that's how it works. So that's essentially where we are right now. And with the polling that we have on the aggregate, it's probably going to be a Schiff against Garvey race in which Adam Schiff is going to be the senator. It's a little, yeah, it's disappointing, but expected from the Democratic Party. To nominate someone for the Senate who is directly affiliated with Jeffrey Epstein. Just a little hint for that one. So, are we going to actually look at this any further? No, it's going to be a safe Democrat race, and whoever's going to win it is horrible, because either you're going to have Adam Schiff, or you're going to have domestic abuser Katie Porter, or you have Barbara Lee, who is a nut job. Those are the three Democrat options mainly. They have Steve Garvey as a football player, and then the afterthoughts of James Bradley and Eric Early. So there you go. That's it for California. Connecticut. Well, Chris Murphy's running again. And he doesn't really have any competition in either the primary or the general election. So there's not really much else to talk about. Delaware. It is uncontested race for Blunt. And for the Republican side, you have Hansen, but there's not really any challenge here. It's going to be a safe victory for Blunt. Florida, well, you have Rick Scott. He gets some competition, not much. What the actual fuck? Okay. There should be a limit on who can run for the Senate, in my opinion. Don't do anyone. So you got this. Rick Scott basically got the nomination on lock. For the Democrats, you get Powell. She's leading the pack. She is a former congressman. So of course she's going to be the one that faces off against Rick Scott. And that's going to be a little race that we're going to talk about a little later down the line for this video. Hawaii, well, Hirono is running again. And there's not going to be any challenge whatsoever. So that's obvious. Indiana, Jim Banks, he's running virtually uncontested. Yeah. Essentially uncontested. Right, so Democrats, you have Carmichael, you have McRae, and you have Ridgel. And at the moment, it doesn't really look like there's a clear frontrunner in the pack for the Democrats. The only thing we know is that for the Democrats, it's going to be a really chaotic primary. Jim Banks, of course, leading that one. I'm going to put it as safe Republican, and that's it for now. Maine, Angus King, he is running again. So I don't see the need why Democrats are running a candidate. So in this one, I think King is obviously going to win. Maryland, you have incumbent Senator Ben Cardin, he's retiring. Democrats, they are running David Trone. He's leading the pack. Quite handily, actually, so he's probably going to get the nomination. He's a congressman for Western Maryland, so that's the Frederick area. And then the Panhandle into West Virginia. That's what he is representing right now. And for the Republicans, you have Ficker, Friend, Puleo, Tigert, and Thorman. And that doesn't really matter who's going to win because they're going to lose anyway. Massachusetts, well, Warren is running for re-election. And the Republicans don't have a candidate, so that's it. Safe Democrat. Michigan, and this is one of the races that is really close on both ends. So you have Slotkin against Harper. Burns isn't going to do much. Baydown isn't going to do anything either. So at the moment, polling, yeah, Slotkin has the clear lead. And for the Republicans, you have James Crack and Mike Rogers, who are leading the pack. So it's going to either be one of those. And the funny thing about it is, in the case of Crack, it is a close race. In the case of Rogers, it is a slightly tilting Democrat race. So that's the state for Michigan at the moment. Minnesota, and not really anything regarding updates. Klobuchar, of course, is running. There are a bunch of Republicans, but none of them are worth anything. So, safe Democrat. And I believe I already indicated that, yes. Mississippi, Wicker is running for re-election. It's going to be a Republican primary, but of course Wicker is going to really clearly win that one. For the Democrats, you have Pinkins, and he's going to be the Democrat nominee, and it's going to be a safe victory for Wicker. Missouri, Josh Hawley is running again, and there are three candidates that are running for the Democrats: Harmon, Kuntz, and May. It's probably going to be Hawley against Kuntz, and Hawley is going to safely win that one. Montana. Tester's got the renomination, and there's not really anything needed for Democrats to try and challenge this guy. And now you have the Republican nomination. This is where the clusterfuck begins. So, Sheehy is running. He's a guy from Minnesota, moving to Montana to run for that election seat, or for that Senate seat. And the GOP has stated that they are intending to pay $50 million for ads in Montana to get Tester out of there. Now, here's a funny part. Johnson is also running. He is more of a statewide elected official. And Matt Rosendale, he is going to announce his run next month. And here's the funny part. If Rosendale is the nominee, suddenly you're going to see that all that money suddenly evaporates. Which is funny. So, for the record, I am endorsing Rosendale. because he's objectively better on the issues. So at the moment, it kind of depends on who's the nominee. And in the case that you have Rosendale, it's a more likely victory for the Republicans, and the Democrats have a higher chance whether it's Zinke or Shahid to win, because Montana doesn't like carpetbaggers. That's just how it works. So I'm going to leave this one open for a little bit. Nebraska, Deb Fischer, she's running again. She doesn't have a primary challenger, so that's going to be a safe victory for Fischer. And the Democrats doesn't look like they are fielding a candidate. Special election. Now this is where the fun begins, because Pete Ricketts, the man who bought his own Senate seat, is being challenged by John Weaver, and he is endorsed by the Republican Party of Nebraska. So that's going to be a little bit of an exciting primary. Democrats, they they have a candidate in Preston Love, but it's not really going to be competitive. So it's going to be a safe Republican seat. It just depends on whether it's going to be Ricketts or Weaver. And I endorse Weaver, of course. Nevada. Rosen is currently the only one that has filed for the Democrats. And for the Republicans, you have Jim Marchant against Sam Brown. There are a bunch of others, but they aren't really that competitive. I would have liked it if Sandoval ran, because he's kind of more known in Nevada. And plus Sam Brown is a Texan, so that's a little bit fire and ice for Nevada. I endorse Marchant, by the way. I think he's a lot better than Sam Brown, but Sam Brown is leading, and in the case that Sam Brown is the nominee, I'm going to say lean to likely Democrat. With Marchant, it can be a little closer. So I'm going to leave this open for now. New Jersey, and this is where the real clusterfuck begins. Bob Menendez, he's being investigated for corruption regarding gold bars that they found in his coat. It's really funny. So you have First Lady of New Jersey, Tammy Murphy. She's running. You have Andy Kim, representative, is running. And then Bob Menendez has stated that he intends to run. That one I kind of doubt. So regarding the polling, it's Andy Kim obviously leading. And in which case it's going to be a safe... it's going to be safe Democrat if it's anyone but Menendez. If Menendez somehow manages to win the primary, and I think that would be hilarious, it would be a tilt Democrat seat. For the Republicans, I'm glad that Van Drew is running for re-election, because he's definitely someone you want to keep in the back in the case that there is a possibility of winning that Senate seat, because he's a good guy. He's an amazing congressman, and you need to keep him around. Republicans don't have anything else to offer, and as a result, and you can also kind of see this here, any generic Republican is losing to Kim by 10 points. So let's hope Menendez wins. That would be hilarious, but it's not going to happen. New Mexico. Heinrich is the presumptive nominee, and looks like no one's going to challenge him. So you have Dominici, you have Gonzalez, and you have Luna for the Republicans running. And Heinrich is notorious for underperforming. So I think when you put it as safe, that's a little bit of a overestimation of his performance. So in this particular case, I'm just going to say it's going to be likely for now. And we'll see what happens in the future. Alright, New York. Gillibrand is running again. She's not going to face any opposition. And the Republicans, they have John Eisen running, and there's not really any competition. I would have found it funny if Joe Pignon was running again, but I think the white Democrats in New York don't like a black guy running for the Republican Party. So he should run, but it's not going to happen. So in the case that this happens right here, you have Siena College does a bunch of polling and they show that Gillibrand isn't really that, how do you say, stable in her position. She's definitely the weaker of the two senators in New York. So you need to keep that in mind. North Dakota, Kramer's running for re-election against Christensen, so it's going to be not necessarily a rematch. It's just that Christensen is going to lose to both Hooven and Kramer. Safe Republican. Ohio, this is another one. Brown is running and there's not going to be any competition. Republicans, you have Moreno, LaRose and Dolan, and everyone else is off. So you have a three-way primary. And I'm going to go with Moreno because you don't need an elitist like Matt Dolan in there, and you don't need someone who thinks that they're the man like LaRose. You need someone who's a little more humble, which is what Moreno is. So it looks like it's going to be a closely contested primary, just like the previous one with James Vance. And this is a three-way race, so essentially if it's Dolan, it's a safe Democrat seat. If it's LaRose, you can put it as a pure toss-up. In the case of Bernie Moreno, well, it just kind of depends on how well Trump is performing in the state. Because Moreno is going to slightly lag behind Trump, but if Trump gets like 60% of the vote, well, in the case of Ohio, I think it's going to be about Trump plus 12 states. If he lags up behind by about 2 points, then it should be easy for Moreno to win that Senate seat. We'll keep that into account later and check it later with the polling. Pennsylvania, Bob Casey running effectively unopposed against David McCormick, effectively unopposed. That's essentially what the polling is right now, and it is obvious that McCormick is lagging behind Trump for about, in this polling I think if you aggregate it out, it should be about 10 points behind as a safe Democrat seat. Rhode Island, the White House is the nominee. McKay and Morgan are fighting it out. Who's going to be the Republican nominee? Doesn't really matter because White House is winning. Tennessee, Blackburn is running. That's good. Against Johnson, presumptively, and that's because Johnson only got the notoriety because she got expelled. Doesn't really matter because Blackburn is winning either way. Texas, Cruz got the renomination. Gibson and Lopez are non-factors in Texas. So it's Ted Cruz's nominee. And here you got a bunch of Democrats. It doesn't really matter because Allred is getting the nomination. He's kind of like the black version of Beto. Or you should say Francis because that's his actual name. With that being said, it's kind of a close race. Ted Cruz is definitely taking this one for granted and he needs to campaign if he wants to win. I think it would be hilarious if he lost. We'll keep a close eye on this Senate race. Utah, doesn't matter what the Democrats do because they're not going to get the seat. What is important is the primary election for the Republicans. So you have John Curtis, who's congressman. He's running for the seat. You got Trent Staggs. He's running for that seat. And you got Wilson, who's the Speaker of the House in Utah. So those are the candidates. And you can definitely kind of see a pattern emerging here. So you have Wilson, who is endorsed by the legislature itself. So for example, the governor, and then a bunch of legislative representatives and senators. You got the federal MAGA crowd, basically, that is endorsing Staggs. And then Curtis, well, he doesn't really have any endorsements. So that's essentially it. Curtis is currently leading, and I hope that kind of goes away. Because Utah definitely doesn't need another Mitt Romney clone. Does it matter? No, because the Republicans are going to win this seat anyway. Just a matter of if the Republican in the seat is actually good. So, Vermont. You have a Democrat. You have Malloy running again. And Bernie Sanders is at the moment listed as potential. Which means, well, he may run. He may also choose to retire. I hope he retires because the Senate definitely doesn't need another communist in there. Chris Erickson is running, which is basically a the legal weed party, but then for Vermont. So at the moment, looks like Sanders is winning. Let's just see how it goes. Virginia, you have Kane getting the nomination, and for the Republicans, you have Hung Cao definitely being the leader of the pack. Doesn't really matter. No, it's a likely seat for the Democrats. Washington, Cantwell's running again. And when it comes to a Republican, you have Garcia, and there's not really any other candidate. This is also another jungle primary state, in which all candidates are lumped up in the same heap, and then the top two advance to the general election. I don't think there is a winner take all or a automatic winner category in which you get more than 50% and then you're automatically the senator, like it is for an example in Louisiana, or in the case of Mississippi when it is an open election. West Virginia, Manchin is retiring. Good God. So you have Blankenship. He's probably the Democrat nominee. Then you have Justice against Mooney for the primary in the Republican Party. Simply put, Justice is your kind of missing link Republican, and Mooney is the one that's actually conservative on the issues. So I would prefer Mooney, but it's probably going to be Jim Justice because he has the name recognition. In the case it's Justice, safe Republican seat. In the case if it's Mooney, it's also safe Republican seat. It just depends on who you're picking now. If Manchin was to run, then you would say, okay, we put Justice in to ensure that it flips. But Manchin is out, so you can put whoever you want in there and he's going to win that seat anyway. That's just it. Wisconsin, Baldwin is running, and for the Republicans you have, I believe Clark is running. You have Hovde is running. And Klein and a bunch of others. Now Clark is currently leading the polling quite handily. And the funny part about it is Clark has a lot of scandals and he's going to generally lose. But in the case that you know it, in Wisconsin, it is definitely a toss-up category. And it looks like Tammy Baldwin is in trouble. Wyoming, well, Rasner is running. Barrasso, his wife, recently died of cancer. So there may actually be a chance that he just decides to retire. So there you go. So this is the state of the race at the moment. And now I'm going to do something that I've probably never done in my life before. And I'm going to look at 538 in a serious manner. Because normally I look at 538 just to laugh at them. But because RCP doesn't have any polling, at least for the Senate at the moment, I have to use some data. So it's best to use bad data than no data at all, I suppose. In the case here we have a bunch of polling. And I'm not going to show it on screen because I don't think he should be getting any form of limelight. So, Democrats have a funded poll that has Gallego trailing Lake by 1 in a 1-to-1 header and a head-to-head poll, and leading by 1 point in the case Cinema is there. So in this particular case, Arizona is in a pure toss-up state. What all these polls do have in common is that Cinema is losing if she runs. So we can definitely say that Independent is not going to be a part of this list. And at the moment, if I were to take an aggregate, there's only one poll that I can use, and that's essentially do a quick math, because there's only one that I can use, because the rest is outdated too much. So that's 40.5 for Gallego, 40.5 for Lake, and 17 for Cinema. Pure toss-up. I can't really say anything about it. So the next one on the list would be Montana, I suppose. Well, let's do Florida. Let's check what they have. Well, in the case of Florida, Nate Silver only has one poll, and it is Scott plus 4. Which is funny. Michigan, next one. I'm just going to look at Craig. I'm going to keep him as the presumptive nominee, in which case we have Slotkin plus 2. We have Slotkin plus 7, but that is in August, so that's really outdated. And the latest one, which is done by Detroit News, is Craig plus 2. In the case of their matchup. Then it is Slotkin plus 1 against Mike Rogers, and then a draw between her and Pete Meyer, so that's the Leprechaun guy that got kicked out from Michigan's third. So, at the moment, based on the polling, I'm going to have Michigan as tilt Republican. And it's probably going to be the hot take of the video. Minnesota, kind of obvious that it doesn't really have any concerns. Montana. 0 polls whatsoever. No, wait, little difference. Yeah, latest poll was in October, so that's not really relevant for this section. It depends on the performance. So Trump, he's gonna probably get somewhere in the 60s range regarding popular votes. He's gonna win Montana by about 20 points. Then the question is John Tester outrunning Biden by at least 10 points? The answer to that question is going to be no. He's going to outrun Biden by about 8. In which case it's going to be a tilt Republican seat, regardless of who the nominee is. We have Nevada. Rosen is leading against Brown, albeit in a very slim margin. And in the case against Marchant, it is a much wider lead. I'm going to put it as lean Democrat for now. And maybe in June we have more accurate polling regarding this. Next state up on the list is Ohio. We have the latest ones are done by Nexstar, which has Dolan down by 3, it has LaRose down by 5, and Moreno down by 10. Is Brown outperforming the Democrat nominee on the presidential level? Slightly. In his first election bid, so 2012, he was outrunning Obama by about 2 points. Then in the midterm election in 2018, he was, well, effectively uncontested because the Republican candidate didn't campaign whatsoever. So I'm going to say at the moment, he's going to outperform Biden by about 5 points. But Biden is losing the state by 12. So I'm going to put this one down as tilt. At the moment. Pennsylvania. Latest one has McCormick down by 4. And the one before that has Casey plus 10. Here's the thing. McCormick is not going to overperform Trump. He's going to underperform Trump by about 8 to 10 points. In which case I'm kind of leaning towards putting this as a safe state instead. But for now, I'm just going to leave it as a likely one. New Mexico, 0 polls for this cycle. Texas, we have 2024 cycle. We have the January ones done by Nexstar in Emerson College. They have it as a lean Republican, with Cruz leading by 2 against Allred and 1 against Gutierrez. So that's the state of the race at the moment. And it kind of depends on what the polling is. So definitely Cruz should be spending a hell of a lot more effort and not taking the election for granted. But you know Cruz, he's going to take it for granted. And because of that, he's probably going to lose. In the case of Wisconsin, well, we only have 1 poll that's being counted along, and it's for May, so I can't really say anything. I'm going to put it as a lean Democrat state for now. So those are all the polls that we have for now. And this is the new baseline essentially. So for the next cycle, I want to put Pennsylvania in as a safe Democrat state. I want to move Texas to a toss-up right now. And I want to put New Mexico in the likely category. So those are going to be the mutations for the next cycle, or for the next video in March. Thank you kindly for watching, and see you next time. Cheers.